All right, we're going to be live in 5, 4, 3. There we go. All right. Hey, everybody, and welcome to today's Mobility, Tech, and Connectivity Show. This is our live weekly webcast on how we are connected and the way we get around. I'm Ryan Girardi. Thank you for joining us. Today is Wednesday, January 20th, 2021. And give me 1 second here. Boom. Sorry, a little bit of a disruption, and I got to record. All right, we're good to go. So it's Wednesday. Happy Hump Day, January 20th. We're back. We were here last week, had a good show to kick off the new year. Today on the program, we got some industry news. We got Boeing paying their settlement fine. The feds are asking Tesla to do a recall. Tesla got some news about them in Norway and Audi. And then Apple and Hyundai agree to get into the electric car business together. Plus, we have our Automotive Marketing Pros panel discussion. We're going to be talking about the new audio drop-in app Clubhouse. And we've got Mike Columbus and John Dawson lined up. Herb Anderson's going to join us, and Cameron Moore. But before we get into all that, we're going to look at a Car Gurus study of the pandemic. It's part 3 of their study. They've done a few over the years. So we're going to look at that. Got Ali Chapman on from Car Gurus will be talking with us. So those are all the things to look forward to. What I'd like to do, folks, is I'm going to share my screen right here. If you go to autoconverse.com, you'll see everything we've laid out for today for the program. And there is the live feed right there. So as you know, we stream it live on YouTube, mostly for recording purposes. But if you're here, say hello. Let us know you're here. Feel free to interact. I'll do my very best to interact with you. What I'll also do for those that are here on Zoom. So we do this as a Zoom webinar, and then it's streamed live. So we've got people backstage. I'm going to share that streaming link, and that'll allow you to engage in live chat as well. Just ask that when you do that, that you mute the audio so it doesn't come through, it doesn't loop back into the program. And then finally, I should mention this. If you look on the site under the MTC show menu is SMS opt-in. Looks like this. You don't need the page for this, but you can. But all you got to do is get out your phone and text the keyword autoconverse to 64600. And then what'll happen is every week when we do the show, we'll send you a link. We'll text you a link on your phone right to the video. It's the best way to go. And I want to give a shout out to everybody that is here and listening that came from that text message. So text the keyword autoconverse to 646. We do technically feature these shows on the podcast. I will admit I haven't done one in a while. I won't get into all the reasons why, but we'll be reviving the podcast. Believe it or not, we still have, I just checked the other day. I'm like, man, this thing's dead. Still get hundreds of people every month downloading the podcast. So, and I've even had people reach out and say, where are you guys? Where you been? Where's the podcast? So we will get the podcast going again soon. Ali, I'd like you to go ahead and get ready. And for folks that are on the panel and anyone backstage, again, we're going to get the panel discussion going at the bottom of the hour, our Automotive Marketing Pros discussion panel. We'll start that in a little bit. But let's get into the Car Gurus study. So what Car Gurus has done, this is part 3 of their COVID-19 sentiment study on how shoppers have responded to the pandemic. And this research came out in late November, early December. It benchmarks and compares the previous studies that were done by Car Gurus in April and in June. And it explores topics such as vehicle inventory, affordability, digital retail, and ride sharing public transit, which definitely caught my eye. So without further ado, Ali, welcome to the Mobility, Tech, and Connectivity Show. Great to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Ryan.
And Ali, as you can see, is dialed in from her home studio in Newport, you said, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So
Newport,
it's 8 o'clock Eastern where you are. So thank you for being here and and taking time. It's kind of after hours, but you probably get double pay for this. So that's good.
Yeah, exactly.
There
Happy
you
to be
go.
here.
And thank you again, Brian Kramer, for lining this up at Car Gurus. Brian has done an excellent job of keeping me in the family circle of Car Gurus. So I appreciate it, Brian. Thank you. So Allie, let's get into the study. What I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it up on screen, but I don't want that to be a distraction for you. I would like to start with either from your opinion or from the company's opinion. What were two of the three, just I think, surprising key takeaways that came from this third study?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd love to kick us off there. As you said, I think you did a great job setting the scene on kind of how the survey was conducted. Most importantly, that it was a benchmark study. So as you said, most recently in November, after the election, so kind of like a fall look. But we also fielded it in June and in April. And what really struck me as the most surprising thing is, naturally when we do surveys like these, you tend to see trends develop over time. But it really struck me that the three of those surveys had a lot of consistency throughout them, despite the fact that they were at, I think, really different moments of the pandemic. So if we think about that first one in April, that was when we were just in lockdown. It was clear that there was going to be real impact and repercussions from this pandemic on car buyers. So that's why we decided to go ahead with the study. And then the second time we did it was in June. The lockdowns had been lifted at that point, kind of heading into those summer months. And then lastly, again in November, post-election, looking towards those winter months. So three really different moments in the pandemic. For me, it's kind of like going down memory lane, trying to remember where we were at and like what we were feeling in those moments. But despite that, saw a ton of consistency in metrics like openness to buying online, things like affordability concerns traveled throughout the pandemic, but also some good news. Created demand was something that was consistent throughout. So really, that consistency to me was really surprising, I thought.
It is. Then you're kind of referring to this chart here, that pretty much twice as many people that responded to the survey through all three times exceeded the benchmark that you had from before of 35%. And I don't think there's a lot of surprise when it's funny, like you said, looking back, right? It's like, it was like a blurry, crazy, probably 6 months there. And my memory of it was half the dealers, could sell cars, half couldn't. And that was changing on an almost daily basis. Dealers were kicking ad spends and, doing layoffs and furloughs. But through it all, every conversation I had, I'm like, so are people still shopping? Do people still want to buy? And it's like, yeah, the demand just never went away. And of course, consumers were kind of forced to do it. Everyone was forced to do it online. Last week, we got into digital remote retailing with Matt Weinberg at Modal. And, and he attested the same thing. It's like the pandemic hit and it was like suddenly everybody had to bring on the digital retailing widgets and integrations into their sites for that.
Totally. And it really was just from the eyes of the consumer, just an eye opener, right? Like people had been just getting used to buying online in ways that they hadn't before. Things like even like online groceries, things like that outside of car shopping. People were kind of like picking up these habits for the first time. And so, like you said, so in kind of pre-pandemic, we saw about a third of people said they were open to buying online. And then in April, that shot up to 61% saying they were open to the idea. And then that never faltered since, despite the fact that we've opened since. So, dealers were quick. And I think that's really has been a theme too throughout the pandemic, is how quick dealers have been to adapt and meet those shopper expectations. But I think it'll be interesting thinking about, how has that impacted shoppers' expectations in the long term going forward?
Just real quick for those on the live stream, I'm going to put, if I put a link to our blog with more details for today's show. That's it's going to look like this if I'm sharing my screen right. In there is a link to this study. It's down here, yeah, right here under part 2. There is a link to the study that we're looking at. So if you want to get the link for yourself, just go there. That'll bring you here. I'm sorry, that'll bring you to the press release, which has a link to the actual study. Allie, these questions here, like home delivery and curbside pickup in automotive, especially in automotive, these weren't things that we did. So is it fair to say there was no benchmark data for some of these questions? They kind of were COVID related questions.
That's a good question. So we actually have kind of previously asked about digital retail, but nothing as specific as home delivery and curbside pickup. But we did ask things like openness to buying online before, so we can see how that has changed as a result of the pandemic. Actually, it was really interesting timing. Just weeks before the pandemic really impacted the U.S. economy, we were in the middle of fielding our annual path to purchase study. It's this really big study we do every year. And so we've actually been able to use that as really a pre-pandemic look for some of these things to see how, that movement and openness to buying online, but also preference as well.
Okay. Help us understand how we're collecting the data, because obviously it sounds like the team has an ongoing collection mechanism. Is that for people visiting on the site, on the web, on their phone? Is it both? Is it email? Can you explain that process a little bit?
Yeah, so we're always conducting shopper research in a couple different ways, most commonly by online surveys. So for things like this COVID-19 pandemic, we posted it online and sent it out not to our own site users, but we actually source respondents through a panel provider so that they're completely unbiased. And we do the same kind of throughout the year. We field these as benchmarking studies.
So people are hitting the site, you're getting it on their phone too, and there's just pop-ups or some sort of call to action. They're asking them to fill out these surveys. Will anyone fill it out? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So people have opted into the survey. It's through a third panel provider. So we have a couple like screening questions up front to make sure that they're the right audience that we want to talk to. So we asked them for this study in particular, we wanted people to who had intentions to buy a car either in 2020 or in 2021. So really capturing either those who did buy during the pandemic or those who wanted to, but ultimately had to delay because of something like either financial stress due to the pandemic or safety concerns and things like that. So we kind of set up this screener so it's an audience that we want to talk to. And then we also make sure that it's representative of the US by asking them things like age, gender, income, region, making sure it's balanced so that we're truly painting a picture of US car buyers.
Yeah. And I'm looking here, like this is something we'd expect. The majority of reasons why people aren't is the uncertainty. But look down here, very few people are the issue didn't have anything to do with inventory, supply, I should say, and dealers being closed. It's definitely more uncertainty. Reasons you did not purchase, immediate need to buy a vehicle, suspected dealer. Yeah, interesting. There was a question down here. I'm looking for it. I couldn't highlight it, about normal activity. Do you know where that is in here?
Yeah, so
towards the end,
we asked about normal activity in regard to the ride sharing and public transportation piece that I think was really interesting.
Let me go down there. That's the other thing that caught my eye, was that you were grabbing data on public transportation. And I was curious as to why. What's CarGurus play in that arena?
Yeah, I don't know if there's an explicit play there, but other than just understanding the future of mobility and how that might change demand. And so, yeah, we wanted to be sure to touch on that. Um, you know, actually, in our last year's report, we were studying millennials a lot, and talking about this idea that millennials often get a bad rap as being very anti-car. There's a stereotype that they're very eco-friendly and live in cities. So I think Uber and Lyft really were at one point talked about as, for millennials, that might be a solution instead of owning a car. Even though we were seeing very little evidence of that, we wanted to see if that was a trend. So we've touched on that subject before in recent studies, and we really didn't see a lot of evidence to support it. But it's true, ride sharing had become massive. According to our survey, I think a little less than half of respondents said they had used the service before. And of course, during the pandemic, they suffered a massive hit in their user base. Most recently in November, we saw that among our respondents, about a third said of people who previously used it, so they either plan to decrease or just stop using it entirely going forward. And that was where the once normal activity returns phrasing came from.
Yeah, whenever I hear that phrase, when things go back to normal, I just roll my eyes. I'm like, man, normal is being redefined.
Totally.
Redefined. So to me, there's no normal anymore. But I think that's a great thing to keep a pulse on is the ride sharing. Looking back to just a year ago, in fact, it was at NADA a year ago, in February. Yeah, second week of February. I had facilitated a panel discussion at Uber's booth. And, ride sharing as a consumer product between Uber and Lyft and whatnot, it was just exploding. And then even on the business side, it was really starting to pick up and gain traction. And then it was like, poof, like don't get like you can't get in a ride share anymore. So let's look at the data here. I expect to use them more. So that did go up. That's good.
Yeah, I think that part is really interesting. We do see the majority of people saying that they're either going to stay or kind of stay the same or decrease. But there is, like you said, since April, a higher share of people saying they're actually going to use the services more once things return to normal, whatever that normal is. And so it could be really interesting for Uber and Lyft. I could imagine that, they might have suffered this massive loss in audience base, but going forward, they might have a more loyal and more frequent user base. People whose commutes or whatnot have been really disrupted by the pandemic. You could see there actually being a need for more of the services.
Yeah, and even down here, I don't expect to use them at all. That just stayed flat. So what that you could conclude that about 10% of the people in the CarGurus ecosystem just aren't going to use rideshare, which you could maybe conclude that 90%, 90% of people are likely to. Well, good stuff. I think a lot of companies came out early on with COVID studies like this. This is the third one from CarGurus, and I think that is a little bit unprecedented, meaning most companies haven't been able to benchmark and contrast the data, through three studies in a year cycle, but even going back to the data you had before that. So how about moving forward? I imagine, are there plans to continue releasing the similar type of information?
Yeah, totally. So we are in the midst of planning our 2021 survey planning for the year. And so definitely planning to do some COVID related topics, hoping that it won't dominate the news as much this year. But we will definitely keep a tab on how this continues to evolve shopper behavior. So you can definitely, like you said, I think you shared a link to the report on your blog. You can also find it on the Dealer Resource Center at CarGurus. If you just Google that, we host all of our research there. If anyone's interested.
Well, cool. And I meant to ask one final question. about how many people would you say have been surveyed, not just through this third piece, but collectively over the past year around this study? About how many people are we talking about?
Yeah, so with this study in particular, it was over 2,000. And then with that initial really big one that I mentioned that we did right before the pandemic, that was 3,000. So
Okay.
yeah, we're in touch with a lot of shoppers.
Okay. All right. Well, this is good stuff. Allie Chapman, everyone, Consumer Insights at Car Gurus, and we're looking at their third study release of the year of how the COVID pandemic impacted the automotive buying sentiment. Allie, thank you so much for joining us today, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thanks for having me. Bye, everyone.
All right, so we'll let Allie pop out. There we go. And what I'd like to do is just kind of cue my panelists to start getting ready. I'm going to bump you guys up to panel mode. And while you're doing that, I'm going to go through some industry news. I just have to flip a switch here. Maybe not. So I'm going to start doing that one at a time. We're going to bring gentlemen up, and give me 1 second here. I got to flip my screen. Ding, ding, ding. There we go. All right, guys. Cameron first. And then Mike second. And then John. And come on, Herb. There we go. Then Herb. All right, good. All right, good. So now what I'm going to do is reshare over here. Make sure I got, nope, don't have the right one up. 1 second here. There, that's what we want right there. Okay, going back here, pop this in. All right, so as I had mentioned kind of early on, we've been following this Boeing story since it happened. They had 2 planes go down in 2018. They got grounded. Last month, we reported that the 737 MAX took its first flight from Miami to New York. And the EU is also permitting the plane back. So it's been a long couple of years. But the Department of Justice just said last week that Boeing has agreed to pay a $243 million penalty to resolve a criminal investigation into how its workers conspired to defraud the Federal Aviation Administration's Aircraft Evaluation Group when it assessed the 737 design. The fine represents the amount that Boeing would have spent to implement full flight simulator training for the MAX and its newly developed flight control systems. But here's the key. Boeing didn't force that, and neither did the FAA. They didn't force or require airlines to purchase the additional safety testing, and Boeing feared that the airlines would complain about the extra cost, or even tell pilots about major changes to the control systems. So it ended up coming back to bite Boeing in the ass, quite frankly, in that case, and it's costing them $243 million penalty. The feds are asking Tesla to do a recall of 158,000 vehicles over media control unit failures that caused the touchscreen display to stop working. And this follows a months-long investigation by the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration. The Office of Defects Investigation Unit of the agency determined that the failure of the media control unit is a safety issue, since functions like the backup camera and defogging and defrosting setting controls stop working, as well as audible chimes, which are used when the turn signal indicator is activated and to alert drivers while vehicle's autopilot advanced driver assistance system is engaged. And reports of the unit's sudden failing have been a topic for years in Tesla forums. It's caused when the memory storage in a flash drive that's used in these vehicles reaches capacity, and the only solution is to replace the physical piece of hardware. Vehicles affected include the Model S sedans between 2012 and 2018, as well as the Model X SUV 2016 through 2018. And speaking of Tesla, I think it's pretty known Tesla is the leading EV maker in the US and in the world, with one exception, and that is Norway. Tesla was second most popular EV brand in Norway for 2020. Listen to this. Electric cars overtook gas cars in market share, surging up to 54% of sales in the country. So talk about being up there. Norway has been a major focus of electric vehicle manufacturing due to the country's overwhelming support of transitioning to sustainable passenger cars. Volkswagen AG and Tesla took the first and second place spots, respectively, with Volkswagen Audi's e-tron and Model 3 vehicles. And by the way, speaking of the e-tron, 2019 Chicago Auto Show, I got to see the e-tron and I was able to report on that. And I was able to dig up the video for that. So that was the number one selling car in Norway. And finally, Apple and Hyundai set to agree partnership on autonomous electric cars by March and start production in 2024. So I guess 3 years from now. The report follows a statement from Hyundai Motor that it was in early talks with Apple after another local outlet said the company's aim to launch a self-driving electric car in 2027. 2027 seems like quite a ways away. Gentlemen, let's get ready. Folks, we're going to transition to our automotive marketing pros discussion panel. And I'll preface it by asking if you've ever experienced FOMO, the fear of missing out. It's a real phenomenon. It's not new to humans, but it is becoming increasingly common and causes significant stress in our lives. And it can affect just about any, but of course, some people are at greater risk. And the idea that you might be missing out on a good time, like I said, is not new, but actually it's been around for centuries, but it's only been studied over the past few decades, dating back to a research paper in 1996. That's where he coined the term fear of missing out. But since social media, FOMO has become more obvious and it's been studied more often. And it's accelerated the FOMO phenomenon in several ways because it provides a situation where you're comparing your regular life to the highlights of others. And I can't think of a more effective social media tool to perpetuate FOMO than this new Clubhouse app for iPhone. So you might have heard of Clubhouse, but you might not be using it, especially if you're not on iPhone. And that's because it's exclusive to iPhone right now. And they built into its rollout, you had to be invited. You can only get on there with an invite. That's going to change soon, but here's the deal. Clubhouse, it's an audio-based drop-in app. It's a social media app. The company describes itself as a new type of social product based on voice, allows people everywhere to talk, tell stories, share ideas, friendships, networking, meet interesting people around the world. Basically, you can jump in and out of chat rooms. Again, they're audio only. Various subjects. You can host your own. People can join them. So it's called Clubhouse. It's like grabbing a cocktail at your local clubhouse. So as you can see, we have a nice little panel lined up. There's John right there. Gentlemen, Herb Anderson, Cameron Moore, Mike Columbus, John Dawson, welcome to the show, guys.
Good to see you.
Great to be here. Mike is our dealer advocate. So Mike, welcome back. And
nice to
Mike,
see you, Brian.
I'm glad. I like your background. Is that that's pretty wild. You're always experimenting. And Herb at the Dealer Talk podcast, you made it. You doing this on your phone?
Yeah, man, we're doing it on the phone, technology.
Yeah.
So.
I tell people all the time, the iPhone, smartphone is a great way to get on a Zoom. If you don't have the digs that Cameron has, look at you, man.
I know I got quite the setup, but it took me years to get to it. 5 screens later, I got it.
5 monitors, you mean?
Yeah, I have 5 monitors.
5 monitors, yeah.
It's ridiculous.
And Jonathan Dawson, welcome to the program. Great to have you here for the first time. Oh, you're on mute. Hold on, you're on mute.
I'm in my hotel room. I just got done with a full day of training with the sales crew. Speaking of Clubhouse, I had a Clubhouse room that I was moderating. Then I'm doing this podcast. Then I have my Pinnacle Society mastermind call tonight. So da-da-da-da-da.
You got a lot going on, and I appreciate you, fitting in here. I promised we'd do the Clubhouse part first, so we're going to focus the first part on technology. Okay, we're going to talk about technology. It doesn't have to all be Clubhouse, but that's going to be the big part of it. That John will bump off a little early, but we'll finish the panel getting more into best practices, how we can deploy these technologies that we talk about. Mike, since you are our dealer advocate and you invited John, tell us why you thought John would be a great guest panelist for today. Oh, and you're on mute.
I feel Jonathan has taken what little I know of Clubhouse to another level. He's an excellent moderator. He controls the room. He has an enormous amount of followers. People jump into his room as soon as they see he's on. And I don't know anyone better other than perhaps Glenn Lundy.
Fair. Well said. So raise your hand. I already know this. If you're using Clubhouse now, or if you're using it. Okay. Cameron, you and I talked briefly about it. Mike, you were one of 3 people in 1 week that told me I need to get on Clubhouse. Can you believe that? You were one of 3 people that in 1 week that told me that. Herb, you don't know, you're not using it, but you know about the app, right?
No, I mean, from when you and I did our session, you were telling me about it. And then I thought, I'm going to do a little bit of research on this because I want to speak intelligently to it. But then I was like, you know what, I'm going to be the guy that doesn't know and is going to have a completely different take on it. But yeah, I know the basics, like what you were talking about. I think the voice portion of it, I think that's the future. So it's pretty interesting to see that kind of going into the social media realm, so to speak. Because I think there's going to be a lot more of that coming here in the next couple of years for sure.
I'm going to speak to the social media aspect of that, but to be a little sensitive of John's time and energy, John, I'd love you to take the lead on your experience so far with Clubhouse, and maybe even if you could give us some context of why it attracts you personally.
Yeah, I appreciate the question, Ryan. Thanks for the opportunity to share with your audience a little bit of perspective on Clubhouse. And my hope is that what I share with them is still up to date because it is an evolving market right now. It's an evolving place. It seems like it's always changing what's happening in there. But let me give you the gist of what I think you should think about when you're trying to think about what Clubhouse is. I want you to imagine that something like a Spotify podcasting site has met up with a Kickstarter and they have a baby. And all the while that's happening, somewhere else in the world, LinkedIn and Snapchat hook up and they have a baby. And then those 2 babies at some point in the future hooked up and had a baby. So it's this creative, like crazy world where you have this concept of podcasting, but it's like interrupted podcasting because it's like you have a public forum podcast. So you're able to, speak to your audience, people raise their hand, you say, what do you got to say? And all of a sudden you're interacting with your audience, moving people in and out of the audience all the time, different moderators doing things. So you got this kind of like interactive podcast concept. And then it's like this Kickstarter. There's inside the Clubhouse, there's literally actual millions of dollars transferring hands, businesses getting started, ventures getting started, investments happening. There's a Shark Tank episode in there with millionaires, like established like guys from Shark Tank. I mean, Damon John is in there, Kevin Harrington's in there, Grant Cardone in there, and they're actually making real offers and investing in people's businesses. Then there's also like there's a prank show in there where they live prank call people randomly, and you can nominate someone and they prank call and stream the whole thing. It's this bizarre world where you got all that happening. And then it's LinkedIn. There's all these business connections and there's this massive amount of networking happening, and you're connecting with people on a much more intimate level than ever before. And it's all Snapchat. There's no recordings. Nothing gets archived. It's said and gone. And that's it. And you can't record it. Recording's a violation of their policies, and they have software that tracks it. Like if you try to record, you have to use like these super special apps and super special software now to try to record it. But then if you publish any of those recordings, apparently they're they're scouring the web for so they're hosting the files, maybe they're hosting the recordings, and they're cross-referencing through audio software and then they'll shut you down. I mean, it's this really weird environment. And you said, what attracts me to it? What attracts me to it, of course, is nuance, right? It's new. I think psychologically, because that's my focus, is psychology. I think that we've spent a year kind of locked up, a year deprived from intimacy of relationship, a year deprived from connection. And you're put in this environment, and there's something about tonality of voice that communicates empathy and authenticity or passion or conviction in a unique way that Facebook as a platform for communication has robbed us of. You can get into a Facebook thread with people and just read a thread and you see the way people are mean and vicious and cruel and heartless. And you just know that if those two same people were in a room together being watched, they would have never acted the way they did. So there's a humanity to the way people are talking to each other. And I think that people are really thriving off of that. And so it's fascinating as far as an environment to spend time inside Clubhouse. And I'm attracted to it because of the relationship building. I'm attracted to it because of the networking. I'm attracted to it because of the possibilities, especially for our industry. There's several automotive specific groups and clubs already created with as many as hundreds of automotive professionals networking in there. It's kind of like think of it like the hallways of NADA. And you're walking down the hall at NADA or a big conference, and you see all the signs on the doors, and you go, I want to see what's in here. And you peek in and listen in, and you go, ooh, that's interesting. I want to take a seat. And then you raise your hand, they hand you a mic, and then they say, come up on stage. And now you're on a panel. And then you go, you know what? I think I'm going to check out a different room, and boop, you pop out and go to another one. I mean, it's really, really fascinating to spend time there. And it is a time suck. I'll tell you this. I'm not joking. There are rooms that go for 24 hours straight, nonstop. There have been rooms I've been in, automotive rooms, where there are people in there for 5 and 6 hours on a weekend or on a late night. I had a room that went till 3:30 in the morning the other day. I moderated a room till 3:30 in the morning. Incredible. So that's a little bit of what's going on.
That's a great breakdown. I tried to write down all the couplets going on with the babies and I couldn't. So I'm gonna have to go back and find that because that was really good. That was really good.
Hey, Ryan, can I describe how I feel?
Yes, I want to get yours and Cameron's take on it too. And I did write down, there's a couple things I want to circle back around with, but we probably won't have time with John. But this is going to be an ongoing dialogue. So John, just so you know, we do this every week and we do different panels on the show and Clubhouse. I'm already like all of us, I'm already finding ways to incorporate it into what we do on auto conversion. So it's going to be a regular conversation, and then it's going to be a regular piece of technology and idea that we're all working with. But I loved what you said. So Mike, you take the stage. Tell us what Clubhouse is in your words and your experience so far.
So I agree 100% with how Jonathan described it, but that's not how I would describe it. Imagine being able to go to any conference you want in the world at any time of the day or night. You're laying in bed and you're scrolling through Clubhouse and you see Grant Cardone is in a room. You see Jonathan Dawson is in a room. You see Glenn Lundy is in a room. And there's 600, 800 people in this room. And you just go into the room and begin listening, learning, raising your hand, having a dialogue with a Grant Cardone or any of these other people who are pretty famous. It's just unbelievable, the power of this app.
Could I speak to that real quick, Ryan? Because you mentioned how famous Kevin Hart, Paris Hilton are in a room at the same time, and you can talk to either one of them. I mean, when have you ever had access to people like this? Gary Vee, Tai Lopez are in a room. You can just raise your hand, and all of a sudden you're talking to these people. The connectivity, community of it, and the access. It's democratized access to knowledge and to informational, experts. It's just democratized it. It's given it to the people. And it's like this, if I can explain it like this, another way to think about it. It's in great rooms, not in all rooms, but in great rooms. It is a game of value one-upmanship that is relentless. I'm in the room and someone says something brilliant. I go, gosh, that's brilliant. I got to say something more brilliant. So then I'm adding value, and all of a sudden you spent 2 hours doing this, and you go, I gave away like $40,000 worth of stuff I would have charged for. Like, this is insane. And then the FOMO kicks in, and you don't want to not be in the room again because someone else is dropping value, and it's a game of value one-upmanship, and you got to be in the game. It's crazy.
Well, you
What
said
about-
something very key. You're giving a lot of value and not getting paid for it. And I'm going to bring that up on my B2B series because I know what everyone's going to run into the same wall that they run into with social media. You can spend a lot of time and it can feel good, but you also have a life and responsibilities and it has to tie in. And that's a real concern. Cameron, I want to go to you while John's
Okay.
still here. And
Yep.
same thing, I want to know your experience and how you would describe it in your words.
Okay, so obviously my description is not going to be as great as JD's.
No, you got to one up
but-
both of them, man. You got to one up.
I mean, the only way I can actually tell people, like, if people ask me what it is, I'm like, man, think about like walkie-talkies, but on steroids. You know, all your friends have walkie-talkies, and you could just ping in real fast and get something of value. And you know, that's something that, like, when I'm learning something, I have to see a video of it or I have to hear it, right? So I love podcasts, I love watching videos, and you know, I got a lot of value when I was selling cars from watching Jonathan Dawson stuff. And, you know, with that, when you're going into these rooms, you make so many connections. Like, you know, I'll jump into a room with some of our clients at Build a Brand, and they're like, hey, Cameron, tell everyone what you do. And it's like, oh man, I didn't come here to talk about Build a Brand. I came here just to hang out with you guys. But, you know, I have actually been able to gain more clients, people purchasing our product in those rooms because we just talk about it. And we talk about things that can help each other. And you can easily just go into any of these rooms and find something that you're interested in or start your own. So if you want to start your own for maybe just talking about gaming tips or, you know, just anything in the world, the people that jump in are people that are actually going to enjoy your content, that are going to be kind of high value, you know, people, because they're engaged with what you're saying. And I like the fact that you can leave a room quietly. So it's not like you have to be like, hey, I'm leaving. You can just leave quietly. But, you know, I've been on a few with Jonathan. Jonathan's like, all right, I'm leaving. And then someone, you know, he's like, all right, guys, I really have to leave this time.
Right.
You know? But it makes it super easy. The UI UX of it's beautiful. It's a very, very easy app to use. And of course, like Herbert said something earlier, that audio is the future. And I believe that 100%. That's why, you know, a year and a half ago, like I was like, how can I put my podcast on Amazon Alexa? Alexa, stop listening. Sorry, she's right behind my screen. But how could I do that? Because audio is the future. And, you know, when I wake up, I like automations. My entire morning's automated. For like what news I'm listening to or podcasts or the weather. And then I get these nice texts that are, you know, super subtle. Clubhouse. Hey, Jonathan Dawson's room. You want to join? I'm like, oh, I love hearing Jonathan talk. Heck yeah. Click. So I think it's an amazing app, and it allows us to actually communicate with and connect with more people than just what we see on social media.
Great. Thank you. And Herb, since now that you've got to hear everyone explain it in their words, and since you are yet to use it, what's your take now? What's your take now? What's your response to what you've heard?
Yeah, no, it sounds incredible. I'll definitely be using a lot more of it now, and, you know, not more, but actually get into it and figure it out. I love the accessibility part of it. I think that having access to, you know, obviously it'd be great to, you know, be able to talk to personalities like Grant Cardone and people like that. But at the same time, you know, when you think about it, how many Grant Cardones are out there? How many Tai Lopez's are out there that don't have the exposure, you know, for whatever reason? And this allows an opportunity for us to connect with those folks and get their perspectives. And then on the flip side, now my brain is going full blown automotive, right? Like, how can we leverage this in the dealer community? You know, I can envision this being a place where dealers can have direct access to consumers in a way that has never been done before. Like, you know, forget a survey. If you can put a room together that you know, average consumers would join, then you would have their ears, right? You'd be able to ask them questions and get that firsthand perspective, which I think oftentimes is lacking in the space, because, you know, the people on this side of the desk, sort of a deal, we're doing this all day, every day. It's very hard for us to have that consumer perspective sometimes. So yeah, it sounds incredible, man.
Well, it's definitely an exciting piece of technology. like John said, it's the new shiny object, right? Um, I'll put my 2 cents in there since you guys asked. Those who know me probably have noticed I've really backed away from social media over the past couple of years. And that's just because of it's the time and the return that you get on that. And it never really, it's a lot to juggle. Years ago, people used to say, "Oh, you're the social media guy." And I'm like, no, I'm not. But I guess I embraced stuff earlier on. But I've backed off over the past couple of years. I won't get into why and where that's led. But as soon as I saw Clubhouse, I had 2 thoughts. I thought, first, they've effectively eliminated all of the friction that it takes to have what we're having right here, right? To get a group of people on a chat, and a video chat, some people are on iPhone, some are on Android, so you can't FaceTime. I don't even think you can group FaceTime. Some people use Facebook Messenger, which has rooms and is great for video, but some people don't, right? Everyone's got a different place. Here we are on Zoom, and there's all this friction, right? There's all the friction, and that makes it difficult. And if anything,
Ryan, I'm going to interrupt you for a second. Just speaking of friction, because I think Herbert's screen is still pinned.
It is. You're right. Let me see.
And so that's that's a perfect example of the friction of video. Is this, do you have your hair right? Like, my hair is a mess right now because I've been wearing headphones and hats. I'm in Michigan. I'm freezing. My hair is a mess. Like, is my hair okay? Do I have the room? When I started my video camera, my bed was featured. I'm like, this is part of the friction of video that even though video creates a dynamic that is irreplaceable in some ways, because it is the face-to-face, it's also, moving screens and making sure it's aligned up properly. And none of that is happening on Clubhouse. Just speaking of friction, this is part of it that it has eliminated.
Well, that's why I mentioned it, because it has effectively eliminated the friction. Now, it's still social media. John, you brought up something really key that I was curious about. You said that there is absolutely no recording of the rooms, and that is that is legally protected. Like that's something everyone can count on.
Yeah. So it's against their terms of service if they discover that you have done any recording or in your possession of recording, they will ban you for life from the app.
But what about them? What about the platform recording?
So I haven't read the terms of service to that degree on the legality. I think they reserve the right to record. I'm sure that they in fact do, because they probably need it for, like I said, voice scrubbing, for all the data they're collecting. I mean, can you imagine their voice recognition software data that they could collect off of all these conversations? I mean, it'd be priceless.
Well, this is why I brought it up, because while Clubhouse has removed all the friction of connecting people in a multimedia room, and we know that video is 75% of the friction. It's done that. It's got the social networking part down, right? I see John Dawson, Mike Columbus all day long on my phone, right? I'm like, Jesus, how do these guys do this? But it's still a social media app. You said something, John, that struck a chord with me, and you said that people probably started to feel robbed from Facebook. You said Facebook, but I think all social media, because here we are in this pandemic, being locked down, and one argument years ago was social media is connecting the world, and now you're saying it's not connecting us effectively or well enough. It's not satisfying, which is why the hell I got off of half of social media over the past, because it's just not serving that. And Clubhouse is, right? But it's still social media. In my mind, we're going to put all this time into an app because why? Because we want the relationships, right? We want the branding. The branding power is phenomenal. I love the branding power of Twitter. It's like you tweet and it shows up on someone's phone. But it's still a social media app. You're going to put all this time and intellectual property and give it to the app, right? And over time, they're going to have to monetize this, and they're going to have to do something with all that information and insight. My prediction, 5 years from now, 3 years, it's going to just be another piece of social media. It's just another social media tool. That's just my take on that, because it's not anything more than that. We are still the product. Does that concern you at all?
Which part of it though, when you say the fact that it'll eventually just become another platform?
I guess the fact that you're the product, and Cameron, I'd love to hear you too. Whenever it's free,
Yeah.
you're the product.
Right.
And while you're getting the instant gratification of the experience, the long term, to me, if anything, this whole election cycle showed us is how powerful big tech is.
Yeah, of course.
I mean, they're equivalent to a government, to an international government. They are bullying the US government and the European government. So I guess in that sense, it's not innovative, because it's just another, to me, it's another collection mechanism that we're the product of. And that does, in the back of my mind, it's like, do it at arm's length. That's me.
Yeah, but what's the difference than like what you're doing this and your website, your blog? I mean, it's still, that's you, right? It's part of your product. I think this is just the evolution in that it's, like it's got the voice element, it's got the ability to interconnect people regardless of some of the limitations that we've had in the past. So I think it's a natural. I think it's a natural evolution of where, it's kind of a marriage between what social media is right now and what the future has for us ahead.
The difference, to answer your question, is that it's not, you're not in control of your destiny. And what I mean by that is you could get banned, you could get censored, right? Your information, your behavioral information, your intent data is monetizable, and you're not getting any of that. Aside from this feed right now, streaming live to YouTube, which I might stop doing, aside from that, you have to be registered to be here on the Zoom, right? And I'm not monetizing this. I'm not monetizing this in a way that big tech companies would, right? They're aggregating the intent, the behavior, and that's not happening in this case. So it is, to me, it is a very stark difference. Same effect. It is the same effect. We're all in a room talking.
Right.
But the product
Yeah,
piece is
I
a
think,
bit different.
I mean, I guess like it's all about trade-off at that point, right?
It is a trade-off,
To me, the trade-off is, for the upside for my company. So yes, I've given away tons of information. Like I've basically held entire seminars on Clubhouse so far that people used to pay thousands of dollars in ticket value to get in the door to listen to some of the stuff that I was teaching on Clubhouse. But I've also generated already. I've got invoices out right now for over $100,000, and I've been on the platform for 2 weeks. So for the trade-off, I'm okay with the trade-off. Right. I mean, at this point, they can have my voice and the audience can have my content, and I'll outvalue as many people as I can in the race to win recognition in the room as a person that you want to follow. You want to know what he has to say because he's going to solve problems in a meaningful way. And you're going to have community and connection with this person that maybe you've seen on YouTube videos and all this. And all that was kind of like almost a one-way push content. And here it's a dialogue. It's not just one-way push content. It's an actual conversation. So when you can have a conversation and you can have connection and you can have community, that's when you have Clubhouse. That's what Clubhouse does. And so I think for those reasons, I'd take the trade-off.
I think it's the right word. It's a trade-off.
You still grow, like your audience is growing, your personality is growing, you're becoming more of an authority within your industry, even more so than doing the solo approach, like what a lot of us have been doing on places like LinkedIn, just giving, but there isn't a dialogue. At least with this, it sounds like you have an exchange with somebody, and that's a deeper connection.
Herbert, let me use another word, which is collaboration, right? So when you're in a Clubhouse and you're moderating with, some of my top clients, like I have Alex Flores in there, and I've got Josh Cummins in there. you got two of the top dealerships in the country, and I'm up there moderating, and they're my clients, and they're talking about what difference Soulcology has made for them. You got this massive authority, transfer of trust from, quality dealers who are saying, this is why we chose Soulcology. But it's not a Soulcology commercial. It's more of just kind of like they're reinforcing the truths of the things I'm sharing with the rest of the audience that they can be implementing. And then you get other voices in there and other industry experts coming in there. And all of a sudden you see like this collaboration and coagulation, like everything's kind of like merging together. And it's this one unified, room. And it's just a really cool experience, because even though you've got massive egos in the room, so far my experience has been the drive behind the ego in the room so far seems to be, how do I add even more value? Because part of the ego is, I don't want to be up here on stage and not have something of value to say to the audience. So I think the audience wins. The if you want to call us the experts, the vendor space who are trying to elevate our expertise, we win. The community wins, and so far it's been a win-win. And with that being said, I do have to go to my Pinnacle Mastermind Society. I've got speaking of collaboration, me, Frank Creniti, and Ali Rada, two of the top salespeople in the entire world. The two combined last year sold over 2,500 retail cars between two salespeople.
That's
Ali and who?
Units between two people.
Ali and who?
Ali Rada and Frank Creniti.
Frank.
Yeah, Frank Creniti.
2,500 cars between the two of them?
Between two people, yes.
Mike, you better get in that room.
Yeah. Well, Mike Columbus is a Pinnacle. He's a Pinnacle Society member.
Okay, good.
So but I share that to say we have a mastermind call twice a month, and that call starts at 9, which is in 3 minutes.
You go do it. It's great to have you up here.
Everybody, great opportunity. Thanks so much for allowing me to share. Ryan, appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience. Thank you so much for being a gracious host.
Absolutely. Great to have you here. We'll see you soon.
Bye.
All right. So guys, I do like to keep the panel to 30 minutes. We're coming up towards the end. Cameron, do you want to add your final word to all this? What are you going to do with Clubhouse professionally in the automotive space?
So what I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to provide value, obviously, to things that salespeople could do. Of course, when I'm, sharing our product, we do so much, but just giving stuff that they could do even without our product, because that's where I've found that I've actually gained clients, is giving them ideas and tips so that they could actually build their business. And that's something I got from Jonathan Dawson. Jonathan Dawson, he built value in me by watching his YouTube videos. I was getting that one way of his content, and then I saved up $1,200 to go to one of his conferences for one day, and it changed my life. But I would just want to build value and give them something that they can actually use to make money. And then if they ever want to come to our platform, I'd love to have them. But I'm not there to sell. Like, I'm really there to just build a community, build relationships, because, regardless if, the world goes to an end, internet's out or whatever, I think those relationships are more important than anything else.
And Amanda would back that up. Amanda on the live chat here on YouTube, she says, whether Clubhouse is here in 5 years or not doesn't matter. The connections only start there, and it's up to you to continue those off the platform or not. Very true, Amanda. And she also pointed out that ROI doesn't have to be monetary all the time. And I agree. My point wasn't make money, but it has to be a good investment of your time. And that's something.
If you have something to sell and nobody knows you, what's the number one objective that you have? It's obscurity. Nobody knows who you are, right? And if people know you and you know what you're talking about, and you have a product to offer, and the more people that you can get in front of, you're gonna win eventually. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and people are tapping into that for sure.
I was gonna say, I couldn't agree, more with Herbert, because that's something that's, that I've seen is like, building value of like how they could do things, how they could use our product. And the intent was never to sell something, but eventually like they came and like, hey, I want to do this. I'm like, that's awesome, man. Like, we've built a friendship up. That's great. You want to jump on the product. But yeah, I agree with him.
Well, this is good. Guys, I like to be real disciplined with the program. I was going to ask Mike his final word, but he had to step out, it looks like. So
I'm kind of nervous for you to jump on a Clubhouse, because good luck trying to end it.
Well, it's funny. When I first started this show almost 3 years ago, I think it was March of 2018, It was a 30-minute show. In fact, when we originally launched the concept, it was with Dealer Refresh, and I kept it to 30 minutes. And it always ended the same. It was, man, we're just getting started. Why do we got to end it? Like, because that's what we want. We want the conversation to have to end so that we all want to come back and continue the dialogue. So that's my hope for you guys. We feature a panel every week on the show. We rotate the focus. Today's focus was audio, video, and automotive sales. That's why Mike Columbus was here. That's why John's here. That's why you guys are here. So yeah, we're gonna continue making this part of the dialogue for sure. That's it. Herb, you got any final words? You good?
Yeah, I mean, look, it doesn't matter whatever end of the spectrum you are. I think that all these platforms, it's worth the investment in whether you're going to be a content creator or you're just going to be a consumer of content. Because ultimately, the beauty of all this stuff for me personally is the opportunity to learn. And if you think about yourself as a professional, right, you should always be in the constant pursuit of knowledge of whatever your field or space is. And who better to learn from than the people that are doing whatever it is that you want to do, right? So if you want to be a great trainer or whatever in the automotive space, who should you follow? The great trainers that are out there, in today's environment, and learn from what they're doing and kind of use that opportunity to educate yourself. And so I think that, what's going on, what has been happening on LinkedIn, this particular platform, I don't know, but I'm definitely going to invest my time on in podcasting and things like that. They've accelerated learning for a lot of us. And it's just great to have these, these resources available to us.
Well, get your butt up there, Herb. We'll be waiting for you. And Cameron, I'll look forward to seeing you in a Clubhouse room as well. As we exit the stage, folks, I am going to go ahead and play a video. This is the new it's a concept from Cadillac. It's their flying taxi shuttle. But I think Cameron already left, but I was going to say thank you, Cameron, for being here.
I haven't left. I'm here.
Oh, you're here. Okay. Thank you for being here. It's great to have you back.
Yes,
and
sir.
Herb, I'm glad you made it work, bud. I'm glad you got it to work today.
Thanks, man.
So that was Herb Anderson from the Dealer Talk podcast and Cameron Moore from Build a Brand. And if you're not familiar with Build a Brand, check it out. Go to buildabrand.com, search for Cameron Moore. Great guy, as you can tell. They help with automotive sales professionals. And that's where Mike Columbus, who had to exit, but very close with Build a Brand and Cameron as well. And Herb Anderson from the Dealer Talk podcast. Herb and I are working on a way to get some of these panel discussions like we're having right now featured on the Dealer Talk podcast. So that is something to look forward to very soon. You're looking here at the concept flying taxi shuttle by Cadillac. This was featured or unveiled at CES. We've been trying to keep track on these concepts. We're definitely looking forward to seeing more of them over the months, definitely years, but over the months to come. So before we go, folks, just gonna what you just saw was our, like I said, every week we feature a panel. Let me share my screen again here. If you go to autoconversion.net, look under the Grow menu. What you're going to see are our new mastermind programs: B2B marketing, Get Paid to Speak Bootcamp, and then People on the Move. People on the Move is kind of what Jonathan, who just left, was talking about. It's like a mastermind for those in automotive marketing, whether you're in retail or B2B. And what we have are these multiple discussion groups. So today we have automotive sales. Audio video pros won't show up in automotive because that's not it's not exclusive to automotive. All these discussion groups are free. You can register for any one of them. That'll give you access to the show anytime, any week. You can access the show and be on Zoom with us, which will become more important as we fade away from YouTube. And for our premium members, you can join the People on the Move group, and that's where you can hold your own audio, video group chats, similar to Clubhouse. We call them Slack sessions. And you can host and join your own within our private digital community when you upgrade to be a premium member. So all the information is up there. But all you need to do is register for one of these groups, and that'll get you access to the show. And finally, you might notice something new on autoconverse.com. What you might notice is this Ask Auto link. And if you're in the market for your shopping or to buy a new car, maybe you want to sell a car or just get a free market report, you can do that here on our site. This will bring you over to Ask Auto and you can put your information in. The great part is that your information is not shared with dealers. And so you'll be able to bring the dealers to you. There's a auto shield that you can activate, and then you can have a special email and a QR code that'll bring dealers to you, and you can interface with those folks here. I'm Ryan Girardi. Next week, well, 2 weeks from now, I am happy to announce we have Benjamin Dykstra coming on from dealershiplife.org. He's a dealership consultant, and he just got off a 6-week road trip with his family and did a tour, meeting different dealers along the way. So we'll be back in 2 weeks. Our focus in 2 weeks will be on fixed ops and used cars. Fixed ops and used cars, they kind of are all the rage these days. So that's what we'll be focusing on in 2 weeks from now. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks, Amanda, Chris, and everyone that was on YouTube. Thanks for stopping by and saying hello. Great chatting with you. I am Ryan Girardi. You're tuned in to the Mobility Tech and Connectivity Show, live here every other Wednesday, 7 to 8 Central, here on autoconverse.com. Have a great rest of the week, and hope you have a great finish to your month, everyone. Take care.